Good day, third year students. As you know, we have done one poem titled as The World is Too Much with Us by William Wordsworth. Today, we will take up another poem by Wordsworth, that is The Stolen Boat. Before we start with the explanation, let me briefly introduce you to the poem. So, this poem is an extract from The Prelude, a long autobiographical poem by William Wordsworth. It has two editions, first in 1805 and the second in 1850. It was published by his wife after his death. In the book First of the Prelude, Wordsworth narrates some childhood incidents of his life, and the episode of Stolen Boat is one of them, about which he talks about in this piece of poem. And this incident occurred at Lake Ullswater, and this incident also exemplifies several characteristics of Wordsworth's poetry, like natural setting, beautiful images, mysticism, simplicity of expression, etc. But most importantly, it reflects his theory of poetry, in which he said that poetry takes its origin from emotions and experiences recollected in tranquility. So, this is a poem where he recollects an incident happened years ago in his childhood. Let us start with the text of the poem. One summer evening, led by her, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cave, its usual home. On a summer evening, the young poet, the Wordsworth, when he was roaming around, led by her, led by nature. Nature is personified here. So the poet was guided by nature, and I found a little boat tied to a willow tree. He found a little boat tied to a willow tree. Willow is a tree with long and thin branches, especially found in cold areas. Within a rocky cave, its usual home. Its usual home, the poet was familiar with the place and with the boat, and that's why he says its usual home, and boat was kept there usually. So he found a boat within a rocky cave. Straight I unloosed her chain and, stepping in, pushed from the shore. Poet untied the boat of her chain, and he also personifies the boat and says her. He unloosed her chain and, stepping in, pushed from the shore, and pushed the boat from the shore. It was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure, nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on. So the poet describes his act as an act of stealth, where what he's trying to say here is that stealing the boat gave him great pleasure, troubled pleasure. Yet at the same time, he was disturbed by his guilt at having stolen someone else's property. That's why he describes it as a troubled pleasure, a mixed feeling of pleasure and guilt. And this is also an oxymoron, a figure of speech where two opposite words are put together. Nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on, leaving behind her still on either side small circles glittering idly in the moon, until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. He says that his ride of the boat was accompanied by the mountain echoes. Did my boat move on? And the boat kept moving away, leaving behind her still on either side. On both sides of the boat, he could see small circles idly in the moon. He could see the small circles of water made by boat as it moved forward along the surface of the water. Glittering idly as it was evening time, circles of water were shining in the moonlight until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. They all melted into a track of sparkling light, and not the visual imagery here in words like glittering, sparkling, melting. The poem is full of beautiful images, and you can notice the visual imagery here used by Wordsworth. But now, like one who rose proud of a skill to reach a chosen point with an unswerving line, I fixed my view upon the summit of a craggy ridge, the horizon's utmost boundary. Now, speaker, very proud and confident about his sailing skills, he fixes his view on a chosen point, his destination, but like one who rose proud of his skill to reach a chosen point, his destination with an unswerving line. And his destination is upon the top, upon the summit of a craggy ridge. Craggy ridge situated at the far end of horizon's utmost boundary, for above was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. So he chooses his destination, that is the top of a craggy ridge situated at the far end of horizon, and he sees nothing above him besides stars and the grey sky, and the scene is absolutely calm and serene with beautiful natural images, and the young poet is all alone with these beautiful sights. She was an elfin pinnace. Lustily I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. Now again he personifies the boat and refers to it as she. She was an elfin pinnace. Boat is again personified, and the boat, and the speaker calls it an elfin pinnace. Elfin, something small and delicate with appearance and with a mischievous charm to it. And pinnace is a small boat. So the boat that the young poet stole was small and light with an charm, with some magical qualities to it. Therefore he calls it an elfin pinnace. Elf is also a fairy. So this was a fairy boat. He is actually praising his boat. Lustily I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. So he calls his boat an elfin pinnace, and with great enjoyment, passionately, the poet dipped his oars, his paddle or his blades, with which one sails his boat in the lake, and he dipped his oars and stroked, and his boat went heaving through the water like a swan. Just as a swan swims upon the surface of water gracefully and effortlessly, in the same manner his boat also swam upon water. When from behind that craggy steep till then the horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct, upreared its head. Now, there is a sudden shift in the course of this joyride. Until now, the young poet was happy, confident, thrilled, and hopeful about his adventure. So, what happened? As he was Sailing towards his destination, a craggy steep, a rocky hill at horizon's boundary, he sees a black and huge shape behind that craggy steep, his destination that he has chosen as his destination. When from behind that craggy steep till then horizon bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct, upreared its head. And he was just a boy at that time, and he saw a black and huge shape behind that craggy steep, and he could not describe it, he could not understand it, but it was actually a huge mountain. But the peak appeared to the young boy with a voluntary power instinct. That means like a living thing having a willpower of its own and its intentions, and it upreared its head, it raised its head. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still for so it seemed with purpose of its own and measured motion like a living thing strode after me. And the young poet was so terrified at the sudden appearance of an unknown black huge shape that he tried to escape from there. I struck and struck again. This is the moment of panic. He struck hard with his oars as he kept rowing further away, and the dangerous shape rose in great height. The grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed with purpose of its own. And again, that unknown shape rose in great height, appeared to him that it was rising in great height, and it also appeared to him having some intentions, approaching towards the poet as if it was chasing him. Strode after me means it was chasing him like a living thing. With trembling oars I turned, and through the silent water stole my way back to the covert of the willow tree. Now he starts panicking, and the trembling oars, the oars that until now he was holding with confidence like a proud sailor, were trembling now. He was so full of fear that he turned his boat around and made his way back to the secret place of willow tree. With trembling oars, he turned back to the place of the willow tree, to the place from where he stole the boat, and back to the covert of the willow tree. There, in her mooring place, I left my bark, and he tied the boat back in her shelter place and left. Now, one thing should be noticed, that while the opening lines paints a picture of enjoyment and great excitement in stealing and then sailing through the water with beautiful images of nature, but in these lines the mood is completely changed with a sense of fear. And through the meadows homeward went in grave and serious mood, but after I had seen that spectacle, for many days my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. And through the meadows homeward went. The young poet took to his home through the meadows in a very grave and serious mood, as he was very disturbed with his experience with that dark shape that he couldn't identify or understand. But after I had seen that spectacle, for many days my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. The narrator says that after he had seen that spectacle means the sight of dark, huge shape, he had many days suffering from nightmares of such shapes. For many days, my brain worked with dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. His brain was occupied with inexpressible terrible feelings of unknown modes of being. Unknown modes of being means he meant that sight of dark shape left him wondering of things and presences beyond his understanding. Being a child, he did not understand what he had seen and couldn't really describe it. Over my thoughts there hung a darkness, call it solitude or blank desertion. And his mind was completely blank. He was unable to think. There hung a darkness. He was devoid of thought, and call it solitude or blank desertion. And the incident left a great impact upon a child's psyche, as he was only a child at that time. No familiar shapes remained, no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colors of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men, moved slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. The speaker says, no familiar shapes remained. No pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colors of green fields. That the shapes of nature, trees, sky, or green fields were replaced by huge and mighty forms of unknown things, but huge and mighty forms that do not live. These shapes were like living beings, yet different from human beings, and they had taken over his thoughts by days and dreams by night, and he couldn't get over this horrifying incident for many days. Live like living man, moved slowly through the mind, and by day were a trouble to my dreams. He was deeply disturbed by the incident, and this horrifying incident left a great impact upon the poet's mind. And through this incident, the young poet got to see the fearful aspect of nature. Nature was for him suddenly something not only to be enjoyed, but something to be feared also. So, students, we have come to the end of our discussion. I hope this poem is clear to you. We will continue with another poem by Wordsworth in the next video lecture. Thank you.